Hmm.
maybe something's going on down there. Like, oh no, this might be it. Like, this is getting pretty intense.
Okay.
With each contraction, I kind of felt my legs shake, and I was like, is that because of the pain or is that because I'm nervous? Like, what's going on? And then at 8:33, we heard like a pop, and it was like audible. Like, him and I both heard the pop, and I was like, my water broke. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, no, we have to go to the hospital. Like,
So, hi, Anna. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to hear your story. And how did you get into this whole idea of natural birth in the first place?
so I grew up in El Centro, California, and I live in Menifee now, which is like the next county north. I got into like the idea of natural birth. I guess when I already found out I was pregnant, I was like talking to my mom about it, and I asked her, how she gave birth. And I remember her telling me like, oh, I didn't get an epidural and I didn't, do this and that. So I'm pretty sure you can do it. And I was like, okay. So that's pretty much how it started. And then I found your course, and I was like, I guess the education can't hurt. So that's how I got into the idea of it.
Awesome. That is huge to have your mom, to have someone go before you that you're so close
Yeah.
to is huge. My mom was a huge advocate of breastfeeding. So that was such a
Oh,
gift because it kept me committed when it was really hard. So that is awesome. Okay, cool. So during your pregnancy, let's talk just briefly about your pregnancy. It was your first time, obviously, being pregnant. Was there
yeah.
anything that really surprised you about pregnancy?
Well, I didn't really show, honestly. So I was like 31 weeks, which was pretty crazy. That was a surprise to me because I thought, once you're pregnant, it's like boom, a stomach.
Yes.
Oh, and I had crazy like pubic pain. Like I think it was like pubic symphysis. Like my groin was just crazy sore every day, and I was like, nobody told me my groin was going to be this sore.
Oh
During
gosh.
yeah, so that made it a little tough, but pretty much that. I mean, I had a pretty uneventful pregnancy. Like there was no complications.
So it's just kind of run of the mill. It seemed maybe like the way your body and the baby rested, it just put, like you were saying, you didn't even show that much, but maybe it just,
Yeah.
baby was just in the position right there on your pelvic floor, or your pelvic bones that just killed. Did you see a
Yeah.
chiropractor or do anything like that to help?
I did once in the
Yeah.
first trimester, and then I just kind of, I don't know, I never really went back.
Did anything help relieve it, like ice or a
Yeah.
maternity belt or?
So the ice definitely, like whenever we'd be like home watching TV, I'd go grab an ice pack and just, kind of ice down there. And then whenever we went for walks, I would wear like a little support band just to see if that would help. And sometimes I'd wear it, sometimes I wouldn't. And it just, I just kept trying
Yes.
different things. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so you hear that, mamas, every woman's body is going to reveal the pregnancy differently, right? Some of us show early, some of us show late, some of us, it's all like a basketball in front, others, it's more spread out. Like every pregnancy and every body is so unique. Now, walking into birth, okay, did you have any fears or any like scary beliefs about it or anything you had to kind of overcome in terms of just your mental stance?
I feel like from the moment I found out I was pregnant, everyone wanted to tell me like their birth story and how, traumatic it was and how, painful it was and how like, oh, I would say like, oh yeah, I'm thinking of doing it unmedicated. They're like, good luck, and I would just, yeah, have comments like that. So I think that just the fear of the unknown and the fear of the potential pain I was going to go through was really
Mhm.
scary. Then I just started blocking it out and, thinking like, well, they're different. They're them and I'm me. So
That's huge to block out and just to set boundaries with other people. If they're going to be
yeah,
negative or they're going to share horror stories, not going there and just protecting
right.
your own space because we don't need that when we're pregnant and we have our
Yeah.
vision of what we want to happen.
Mhm.
So then preparing. So you've got 9 wonderful months or more,
Yeah.
to as you approach this event. So what were some things you did to prepare physically? Was there anything you did physically?
Yeah, I was pretty active the first 2 trimesters. I was still running until I was, I think, 22 weeks, 23 weeks around there. So I would still go for like, my morning runs and stuff. I'd still work out in our garage. I'd do like, some lightweight stuff body. And I tried to walk as much as possible. I still worked. So I'm an EMT. So I worked on the ambulance till I was about
Oh
32 weeks.
my God.
Yeah. So
Woo!
yeah. So I worked on the ambulance till I was about 32 weeks. And then the last 8 weeks I was in the office on, light duty. So
Gotcha. Did you have
yeah,
to
but
do
I
any
feel
like pregnancy calls or anything like that? Did you have any of
Um,
those?
I don't think we did. No, not
Okay.
yeah, we didn't. But I would hear, from other people, like other crews on the same shift, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I almost delivered a baby," and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm just not getting those calls because I would freak out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. God protecting you. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you're really physical, just staying on your feet, staying active,
Yeah.
doing some workouts, not really changing, because for a lot of us, we don't have to change our workouts, as long as we were doing
Right.
it before and we feel good, we can continue. How about mentally preparing? I know
Yeah.
you mentioned you took our course, so that
Yeah.
was definitely getting the education. Did you do affirmations or any kind of thing like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I prayed about it and I would say, like, I would be like, just, I need the courage. I need the strength to do this. I would read a lot of like natural childbirth stories. I would read other people's stories about, how their births went. I think just reading more books about the whole, like, physiologically, like the whole process of birth and stuff. And so I think just knowing more helped me not fear the unknown.
Yeah, totally.
So,
That's just like a natural biological process. And
yeah.
the more you know about it, then it takes that fear of the unknown. And especially even your line of work. I mean, you have a
Yeah.
medical background, so that probably can help, but
Yeah.
also hurt.
Right, because I would hear horror stories about, from other paramedics that would say like, oh, my home birth, or not my home birth, but they would walk into calls where it'd be like a home birth kind of needing to be transferred in an emergency. And, stuff like that would scare me too, because I'm like, oh gosh, this isn't, this is so real.
Yeah, but just so people hear this, that is the exception rather than the rule of home births
Right.
having to be transferred. And actually, my midwife, I worked with this one midwife, my last birth, who had been doing it for 40 years. And she said the number one reason why women transfer in her experience through all those decades was because the mom wanted to
Right.
go, so it
Yeah.
wasn't like necessarily a medical emergency. It was more that the mom wanted to be in a hospital, like
In a
because she,
hospital setting.
yeah. Anyway, she got to the point where she wouldn't even help first time moms because she's like, I just can't handle I want someone who knows what they're doing. I'm like, okay, because I think she had just been doing it for so long and she was just ready to shift into that. Okay, so
Right.
let's get to the big day. How did you know, like, you were really in labor? I mean, did you have Braxton Hicks before and then all of a sudden you knew? Share with us how you actually knew, all right, I'm in labor.
The day I went into labor was on Thursday, August 4th. And prior to that, I had not a single sign of labor. Like, I felt like I was going to be pregnant forever because I was at 40 weeks and 5 days. And I had an appointment scheduled a few days after that to possibly get an induction. So I was terrified of that. And I was like, oh no, this is not the way I wanted things to go. So that Thursday, we wake up, it's a normal day. And at about 3 p.m., I go to the restroom and I thought it was discharge, but it was actually like the bloody show. And I was like, oh gosh, like I told my boyfriend, I was like, maybe this is it. But then I told him, like, I can't get too excited. It could take like a few days from here. We don't know. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go shower and, just try to relax because I got really excited. And then at about 4, an hour later, I started feeling some cramps, but they were pretty like strong, like right away. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is it. This is like some cramping. I'm like, I did just have like probably my mucus plug come out of me. So, maybe something's going on down there. I told my boyfriend, I was like, let's try to like count them, like, time them and see really how this is going. I mean, people say count your contractions, but you don't know what, like, when it really starts or ends if you're in the beginning of it. But immediately we started counting them and they were exactly like 5 minutes apart, lasting a minute long. I was like, no, that can't be right. We're not timing them right. They were just consistently 5 minutes apart, about 1 minute long. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do my hair in case we do need to go to the hospital soon because I don't want to wash it at the hospital. So I was like, look, I'm going to straighten my hair. It took me about 4.5 hours because I was doing my hair in between contractions. It was
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like, really, I don't know. I guess maybe it's like instinctual. You don't leave the house till your hair's done. Like, you're not going to leave with like half of your hair done.
Well, maybe too, that was like a great distraction, right? Because we talk about using distraction, especially in that early time where it's just like, so it gave you a project, gave you something to focus on that wasn't about labor.
Yeah. So I did that for about basically 4 hours. Like, I would have a contraction, kind of get on like all fours or like lean over the bed. And then I would go back to doing a section of my hair. And then I would feel one coming on and I would go back. And then my boyfriend was like, why don't you try bouncing on the ball? And I'm like, no, that's not going to help. And then I tried it. And then I think right before I finished my hair, I was bouncing on the ball and I just started crying. I was like, oh no, this might be it. Like, this is getting pretty intense.
Okay. Gotcha.
And
so this is where you're like, I got to do something. Is that kind of where you were?
Yeah. So that was around like 8 p.m. I was like, I just finished my hair. And I didn't have a task anymore. So I was like, oh no, now I just have to kind of figure out how to get through these. And this whole time, like I kind of kept the room dark. I would just keep moving around. I kept trying to find different positions that, I would be able to last through the next contraction with. And then finally at around, so between like 8 and 8:30, I went to our nursery and I sat on the recliner because I started feeling a lot of pain in my lower back. I don't know, I just started feeling kind of intense. And so we put the heating pad down on the recliner, we put some towels down, and I just started like rocking in the dark, I guess, just trying to like calm down and not really think about it. Just kind of go through with the contractions. And then I was there for about 20 minutes. I kind of was reclined, had my feet up. And then with each contraction, I kind of felt my legs shake. And I was like, is that because of the pain or is that because I'm nervous? Like, what's going on? And then at 8:33, we heard like a pop, and it was like audible. Like him and I both heard the pop, and I was like, my water broke. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, no, we have to go to the hospital. Like, this is a couple hours in, my water just broke. And so it was like getting pretty intense. And then he started freaking out. He's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go put stuff in the car. And I'm like, yeah, you go do that. You go handle all that. And I'm gonna go shower again because I'm like,
yours. Yeah. Okay. Let's just back up for 1 minute though, because I want moms to really hear this. I loved how you got into the dark, because when we're in the darkness, that's going to keep that whole hormonal cascade going. We're not going to get into that fight or flight as much. So you put yourself in darkness, you relaxed, you used heat as a wonderful tool. I loved how you were leaning back and just letting yourself continue to labor. And then something shifted, right? Pop goes the weasel. Here we go. And when your water broke, was it like a gusher or was it a leaker, or how did that look?
It honestly felt like I sat on a water balloon, but a small one. Like it felt like I felt like I sat on a small water balloon. And like, I guess when I was like rocking in the recliner, I kind of just rocked a little forward and it like popped. And then, I mean, it leaked. Gotcha. It wasn't like a huge gush. It was a small gush.
Gotcha. But you definitely could feel that. Yeah. I know exactly what you're like. Oh my gosh, someone popped. It feels like a pin just went boop. And it's a different, it kind of releases some things, and obviously, but I mean, it shifts the labor pattern too.
Right. So, after that, it was like, it just felt like things were flying, like time was flying. Yeah.
Okay. So what time was this about approximately, would you say?
So my water broke at exactly 8:33. And then I took like a 5-10 minute shower, and then we were on our way to the hospital by like in the next 15 minutes. We were like already getting in the car and going. And that's when I was like, okay, this is getting pretty intense, because I'm like waddling to the car, like having this kind of stop and then go. The car ride was about 20-25 minutes to our local hospital. Oof. Yeah. And now I'm like traumatized by that freeway, because I was just going through contractions on that freeway. But yeah, so I would have I was yelling in the car, like with each contraction. I was like actually sitting on like one butt cheek, because I was just trying to get so comfortable, but it was hard in the car. And then we finally get to the hospital, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't walk across this parking lot. Like I need, a wheelchair. So my boyfriend runs in, gets a wheelchair, wheels me in. I had a jacket like on my stomach, so I don't think anyone like saw I was pregnant. I just brought it with me. So the security guard didn't see my belly. And so I go to check into the ER, and the lady is like, oh, what are you here for? And I'm like, oh, I'm in labor. She's like, oh, go upstairs. I don't want to deliver a baby in the ER. And I was like, oh, okay. So
nice.
So the security guard's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see your belly. I'm so sorry. Like, I'll wheel you up upstairs. And so we're in the elevator at this point, and then we're going up to the labor and delivery unit. And I'm like in full, like I'm having contractions. I can't sit still. Like I can't even sit up. It's the weirdest thing. Like I'm like sitting on one butt cheek, another butt cheek, and I'm just like rolling around in this chair.
Yes. And there's no comfortable position at this point. There is no comfortable position. So you're just,
And I was
what thoughts were going through your mind at this point?
I was like, I need to get on a bed. I need to like find another position. That's all I could think about was like the next, like, I need to get comfortable. I need to get comfortable. We're right outside the doors, like the locked doors of the labor and delivery unit. We call them, let them know I'm there. I had pre-registered before with that hospital. So when the nurse came out, the charge nurse came out, she was like, I don't have a bed yet. So give me like 10 minutes. And I was like, 10 minutes? That's like an hour.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And no one had checked you at this point?
No.
Okay.
No. I was literally sitting, like I hadn't even been seen by any like medical people yet. Yeah. I was just sitting there. The security guard was like rubbing my shoulder. She didn't walk away yet. She's like, oh my gosh, they need to let you in. I was like, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So then I finally, 10 minutes later, they finally opened the door. My boyfriend wheels me into a room that they have. And it takes me about another 5 minutes just to get up from the wheelchair, to stand up, to throw my leg over the bed and get on the bed. I just kept saying sorry. I don't know why I was saying sorry. I kept saying sorry to the nurse. I was like, I'm sorry. I can't get up. She's like, take your time. And I finally get on the bed, and it seemed like the most daunting thing to like have to lay flat to like get the monitors and all that on. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, you need to like raise the bed up. I can't lay flat right now. Like I need to be sitting up or something. So I was able to finally get on the bed a couple of minutes later. And at this point it's like 9:20. So it's been about an hour, and I'm finally getting a bed from like when my water broke. And so yeah, I'm in the full throes, I feel like, of labor now. And
yes.
so she hooks up the fetal monitoring, checks my blood pressure. Everything's looking good. Baby's looking good. When I'm finally able to like kind of get myself up, I'm not like leaning or, like I guess curling into one side. I finally sit up, or not sit up. I lean over the head of the bed because she had sat up the head. And I'm like facing the head of the bed on my knees. She's like, okay, I'm going to check you now. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, do whatever you want. So
yeah, all inhibition has left the room at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, yeah. So so she checks me, and then I think she kind of looks at my boyfriend. I can't tell. I'm just like in the zone. And so she's like, well, you barely have anything left. And I was like, okay, like I don't know what that means, but okay. She's basically said like you barely have any cervix left. So they never actually told me if I was dilated. I just assumed like, okay, like that's, I guess we're here now, we go.
Yeah. Well, how soon after did you feel that urge to push, would you say?
Maybe 10-15 minutes later.
Okay.
I was already,
so you were like 8 or 9. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like there. And
you were there. You were there. Yeah. Because a lot of women will even start having the urge to push at 8.5, 9 centimeters. So
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us how you shifted into, so you were obviously kind of going through transition, probably in the car, in the hallway. And that's just so brutal because you're not even settled somewhere. You're in transition. You were literally in transition from one location to another, and you were actually in birth transition. So double whammy. But it sounds like you used breathing. How'd you cope?
I just tried not to let my mind, I guess, wander. I was just like, okay, you're going to get comfortable right now. Just calm down. Like, I didn't start to, I don't know. I just tried to focus on like the next thing. I didn't think beyond that. I didn't think how long had I been in this. I just tried to stay kind of like in the moment. And then I felt like, okay, we're already at the hospital. We're here. Like it's progressing. We're doing fine. I guess, yeah. The only time I was actually like a little like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, was that last shower before we left the house, where I was like, oh gosh, like, I don't know how long I can sit in the car. Like, but after that, like, I didn't let myself freak out. I was like, no, like, we're not, like, I don't even have the energy to like, I guess, like freak out or think about anything else. Cause I was like, once you get in the bed, you'll be fine. Once you're pushing, you'll be fine. Like,
it sounds like you had a lot of mini goals to get you to, right? So that's a really helpful tool in labor, is just have small little milestones. So it's like, okay, once we get to the hospital, right? Cause you're in the car. Okay. Now, once I get admitted into the labor and delivery ward, okay, once I get onto the bed from this wheelchair, right? These little baby steps are really, it's actually a wonderful tool to use during labor, because you can't swallow the elephant in one bite. You got to really take it by one contraction at a time, one moment at a time to get. Okay, cool. Okay. So, tell us, then all of a sudden, did you just get the urge to push? Tell us about how you transitioned into pushing.
Yeah. So when I was still like the bed, I was fully sweating so much. My boyfriend kept like putting a rag on my neck, on my forehead. Yeah. So I was sweating, and then I just started like feeling the urge to like poop almost. Like I just felt like, oh gosh, okay, maybe I'm going to poop. Maybe I'm one of those people that poops. And I didn't care. I was like, I don't, whatever comes out. But I started pushing there. Like I would feel like, I don't know, every time I took a breath, it was like my body, just my lower half was just like doing its own thing. It was like, just, even if I didn't want to push, I felt like my body was already squeezing whatever down there.
Wonderful. That's called laboring down, where you just allow the body to do it, itself. Basically, you're not, you're just letting your muscles and your uterus do what it needs to do. So, okay. So it was just like,
because I wasn't even thinking about pushing. I did that for a couple minutes and just kind of rocking my hips back and forth, like, on my knees and doing that. And the nurse was like, do you want to try laying on your side? Do you want to try laying on your back? Like maybe that'll help, things kind of move along. And I was like, not right now, not right now. And so I just kind of kept in that position for a while. And then when I finally like, okay, calm down, I guess, and then was like, okay, maybe I can try a different position. So I asked for a peanut ball and they had one like just sitting there. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll try that. And so she grabs the peanut ball, starts putting it between my legs. And then I'm like, oh no, this is not comfortable at all. And so I'm like, sorry, don't move the peanut ball. I can't do this. So she's like, oh, you're fine. And she was such a sweet nurse. I just ended up laying on my side actually with like nothing between my legs, kind of just my legs kind of closed. I'm just like there and I'm still bearing down. Like I still feel like the urge to push.
Yeah.
I'm like holding the side rail for the from the hospital bed and just kind of like pushing with each breath. But it wasn't really like I wasn't consciously like pushing, like you said, like I was just my body was just kind of squeezing, I guess is the way to describe it. And I was just kind of like, I guess yell a little with each like push because that felt good. The nurse had said they noticed, I guess from some of the like water that I was leaking that they noticed that the baby had pooped. So the nurse told me, she's like, okay, things are going to move really fast from here. Like we can see like your baby pooped. I remember like telling my boyfriend like, oh, that's like not good necessarily. Like earlier on when we were getting like all this birth education.
Yeah.
And so he kind of got worried when he heard that. She was like, don't worry, it happens. He's like, it's not unheard of for a baby to poop. But she had let us know that I think the NICU team was going to just be like on standby or in the room just in case.
Yeah.
And so I'm
it's
still
like meconium
very
aspiration is what they're concerned about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't even think twice. As soon as she said like it's common, I was like, okay, I'm not worried about it. Like I was like, I tried not to worry. Yeah, I tried not to worry about anything. So then I hear a lot of people start moving around me. Like I wasn't really looking at anybody. I would kind of look at the nurse and then look back at the bed. And then I hear people, stuff getting ready. And then I hear, I think it's the midwife and then the OBGYN come in. And they're like, oh, we see hair. And so then I feel a bunch of people get around the bed and I'm like, what already? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so it was like literally that fast. Like I didn't feel like, I knew my pushes were doing something, but I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, no, this is going to be forever. There's women that push for hours. Yeah. They said they see hair. And I felt it. I felt her coming down the birth canal, but they finally get me to open my legs because my legs were closed. Like she was coming out with my legs closed. And I was
oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So I'm on my side. The midwife or the OB, I forget who, keeps trying to get me on my back. And I'm like, no, I can't get on my back. Like, you don't understand. Like, I'm on my side. You could try to flip me and I'll push that way.
Yeah. So, I could just lift up my leg and she can come out that way. Yeah.
So they end up lifting my leg and they keep trying to have my knee go like more towards the ceiling. But I keep saying like, no, I want my knee in and my ankle like up. And that honestly felt the best. It felt like, I don't know, like my pelvis was kind of more open that way. So,
so let the mom choose the position she wants to give birth in. Okay. Yeah. She has a wisdom. Only you know how your body feels and how that baby's positioned inside. So it's important for you to work with your body and your baby. So I'm glad that you stuck up for yourself and was like, no, this is the way. I just kept saying, no, actually it feels more comfortable. And they were like, okay. I pushed like that. And then it was funny. I heard someone was like, oh, my back, like, because their back was going to hurt from holding my leg in this weird angle. And I was like, your back. Yeah, no doubt. You're like, yeah. Yeah. So then, I'm pushing. And then I thought I felt like the midwife insert like her fingers. And I kept saying like, oh no, your fingers are hurting me. It was funny. She was like this lady with like an English accent. She's like, that's the baby. And I was like, oh, I was like, oh, okay. Sorry. I thought that was your fingers. And so a couple pushes like that. And yeah, she came out in like this one big push, still holding my leg on the side. And I was still gripping the rail on the side of the bed. And it just happened so fast. So this is like, so I got to bed at 9:20. At 10:49, she was born. Wow, and that's wonderful. So about an hour and 20 minutes or so of pushing. Okay. Yeah. Not bad at all. Yeah, about that long. And I couldn't even believe it. Like I was like, wow, I did it. Like that was so fast, Yeah. I couldn't even I thought I was going to be the one to cry when she came out. And then I look at my boyfriend and he's the one tearing up. I was just more in shock. I was like, I did. Yeah. Yes. I was like, oh, I can't believe that was so fast, Yeah. And so, it was so crazy. They put her on me
And they're like, oh, her lungs are great. She didn't ask for it. Like, she's great. Like, she's breathing. She instantly started
Yes.
crying. And
Oh, wonderful.
she was 8 pounds, 6 ounces. I didn't even stay still enough throughout this whole process till after my placenta came out that for them to get an IV in my arm. So it was like, I just kept moving.
Yeah.
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 So I feel
Movement
like
was your friend.
that really helps too. Like, if you just kind of let your body do its thing. Cause I thought, I had seen all these posts like on Instagram and all these like different positions in like birthing book or like, childbirth books. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to push on my knees, over the head of the bed. And then I get to the hospital and I'm like tossing and turning. I can't find a position. And then I finally am like, oh, my side feels good. So
Yes.
yeah, I think you
Well,
just
good
kind of
for
have to,
you.
let go of what you think it's going to look like and just let your body do its thing. Yeah.
Totally. I've had women, in our birth course who ended up giving birth on their back and they are just shocked because of course we talk about that a
Yeah.
lot, how it can compress the pelvis and this, but that's just what felt comfortable for them. And that's how they
Yeah.
gave birth to their babies. And hey, if that's what works, I will always default to whatever feels the best for the mom because we don't understand all the increase in all those little details about how baby's positioned and mom's anatomical situation. So I'm glad that you kept working at it, though. It's like, okay, I'm gonna try this position,
Yeah.
and I've been in, different births where sitting on the birth ball feels literally like I'm sitting on like shards of glass. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. But then there's another birth I had that it did feel comfortable. So you just have to go with your body and your particular birth. So start to finish, how long was your birth?
Like about 7.5 hours.
Amazing.
I mean, my mucus plug, I lost it at 3, gave birth at 10:49, but I didn't have contractions till about 4. So I'd say
that is awesome.
Yeah,
that is
about 7.5.
fantastic. How did it feel to finally be present and hold your baby for the first time and see her? And what was that like for you?
It didn't even feel real because that morning I woke up and I was like, oh gosh, I'm still pregnant. I could go to 42 weeks. And then that night it was like a whole new person was with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's here. Like it didn't feel real. I guess it honestly took like a whole day to settle in because it just happened so fast. I was mentally ready for such a long labor.
Yes. Yeah. Because, the typical first time mom, the average is about 19 hours of labor and yours was 7. So your next pregnancy and birth, you'd be a great candidate for home birth, or just being very, very close to wherever you do choose to give birth, because usually they go faster and you just want to be prepared for that. If you looking back, and you were pregnant and you were going through your struggles of hip pain and this and that, is there anything you would have told your pre-pregnancy self or your early pregnancy self?
I guess, just keep moving up until when you can, I guess, like in your pregnancy, like don't stop moving. Because I feel like my groin pain actually got worse the more sedentary I was. Because when I was working on the ambulance, I didn't really notice it that much. And it was there. It was already like 31, 32 weeks. But once I moved into the office, oh my gosh, it was worse because I wasn't moving around as much. So
yes.
But at the same time, I didn't really want to because I was like, oh, it hurts. But it's like, it hurts, but it feels less painful when I move. So it's like, you kind of have to
It's hard. Yeah. Hurts so good. How about, do you have any advice for new, mamas who might be 6 months pregnant or, approaching their birth? Any words of wisdom you would share with them?
Don't let other people psych you out and don't read too much into like their stories. And if you don't want to hear all those like, little comments and stuff, just, I don't know, maybe don't mention it to people that you want to go unmedicated because not that they'll talk you out of it, but they'll say little comments here and there that kind of disturb your peace a little.
Totally. Yes. Keep your peace.
I just kept reading like about childbirth and positive birth stories. And just kept telling myself like, I can do this. Our bodies are designed to do it. So if it's designed to do this, and the breastfeeding, I wish I would have read more about breastfeeding. Oh my gosh, breastfeeding was a whole nother thing.
Harder. So that happens a lot of times. You get an easy birth, but then a hard breastfeeding journey.
Oh my gosh.
Because it comes somewhere there's a struggle, but
I was like, I should have read way more about breastfeeding. My labor was so quick. I spent all those hours reading about it and now I'm like here with the whole baby and I don't know.
Yes. And breastfeeding is so chronic. You have to do it 12 times a day plus, or, and it doesn't go away. You have to keep at it. So
it took about 2 weeks to get kind of like, okay, I think I got the hang of this. But the first 2 weeks I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I can.
Yeah. It's really a challenge. It really is.
Same thing. Like same thing like how you said your mom was like an advocate for breastfeeding. My mom was too. My mom was 18 when she had me, and she breastfed me for a whole year. And she was like, I don't know how I did it. She's like, I didn't. She's like, I read books and stuff, but she's like, it was a whole other thing.
Oh, yeah, good for her. Sounds like she was a little pioneer because I don't know
Yeah.
at a certain time, formula got really popular. And so for her to stick with it and to be that young and to make that kind of commitment is huge. So,
Is yeah, I see her in a whole different light now. I'm like, you were 18 when
oh,
breastfeeding? Like, that's insane because, yeah,
yeah.
you need a lot of patience.
Yes, you do. You do a
Yeah.
lot of maturity. Well, Anna,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing the beautiful birth of your darling baby girl. It was so inspiring to hear, and I'm so happy for you. And it sounds like you just went deep within and got that peace and just took it one contraction at a time. And voila, you are also blessed with just such a smooth, easy, uncomplicated birth. So hallelujah.
Yes.
But thank you again for sharing with us. It's going to help so many mamas. And thanks again for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring that bell. Also, head on over to mamanatural.com/updates and sign up for my free pregnancy week-by-week series. Each week, you'll see what's up with baby, what's up with mama, and learn how to have your best, most natural pregnancy. Finally, check out the Mama Natural Birth Course. You've been told that childbirth is scary and something completely out of your control. But I'm here to tell you something different. You can rock your childbirth. And midwife Maura Winkler and I will teach you how. And join the thousands of women just like you who have joined my birth course and have had triumphant natural childbirths. Learn more at mamanaturalbirth.com.